Hello and welcome everyone to episode 141 of One Piece at a Time, the One Piece read-through podcast where we read and discuss 5 chapters of the One Piece manga each and every week. I'm your host, Derek Bittner, and I'm joined by my wonderful co-host and freelance letterer at Shonen Jump, Brandon Bovia. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm, of course, Brandon Bovia, letterer of manga like Kaiju Number 8, Dragon Ball Super, many, many more. And I think we're almost done.
We are getting close to the end. In fact, something happens in this set of chapters. I'm like, wait, really? It's like, that already went down? And we'll talk more about that, but it did kind of catch me off guard. So it really does feel like things are getting close to the end, which is exciting. But I also think this is generally just a great set of chapters.
I feel like with us kind of barreling towards the finale at this point, it feels like this is it. Things are coming together as much as they possibly can be.
Yeah, I think you are right in that way. And let's not waste any time. I'm excited to talk about some of these things. So let's get to chapter 641. What are you? And boy, last 2 years have been rough on Cobra. I mean,
he looks. He looks happy. He's smiling, but he is in his sick bed, apparently. Yeah,
he's in his sick bed, and he is significantly more white-haired than he was before.
Yes. Yeah. The time got to him.
Yeah. It's like the stress of running the kingdom is just finally cut up. It's like, oh, I can breathe now. White.
Yeah. Wow. Which, isn't that how it goes?
Yeah. It's either a gradual thing where you look at yourself and like, what happened? Or it's just like, oh, it's just overnight. Bam. There it is.
Yep. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not too worried considering how happy Vivi and Igram look.
Yeah. And Igram. Yeah. They're both happy.
Yeah. So all good there. Yeah. Into the chapter itself. And Hody is just pleased as punch that, well, he thinks Vanderdecken's dead, but no, he's just passed out.
He's just knocked out. Yeah. Although, As a quick, just kind of aside, like, have we ever had an example of like a character getting knocked out and that kind of canceled out their devil fruit power? Is that the first time we're seeing this?
I think it might be.
It's one of those things that I feel like is assumed, but I guess like we haven't had a devil fruit user whose devil fruit in this way acts on other inanimate objects.
Yes, it doesn't persist. The only example that I can think of that would also apply in that way would be Moria, but they specified that he has to release it himself.
You're right. Yeah, because that was kind of the opposite, because they were like, oh, you could knock me out, but no. So I guess maybe it just depends on the devil fruit.
I guess so. Everything's a little bit different. I think it's also safe to say that Moria is a little bit stronger than Vanderdecken.
Yeah, that might also be it.
Vanderdecken's knocked out, and the ship is steadily falling back towards Ryugu Castle and Fishman Island. And we actually get a bit of a flashback through Fukaboshi, what Neptune said. So apparently the Ark is no mere historical ruin. It sits on the seafloor waiting for the fulfillment of a promise made with a great man centuries in the past. It is a ship that is yet to fulfill its purpose. Even the methods of its creation are long lost, and so Noah cannot be harmed until its promised day. Who the heck is this great man, especially when it's centuries ago? Like, what is that all about?
Mm-hmm. I have things I really wish I could say about this, but I feel like if I say it, it will be giving something else away that I know that we're about to learn. But there are like, it's interesting because I feel like what Oda is trying to do is to make you think it's something when it's actually something else. And that's not to say that I know what Noah is. I guess it's more like, I think I'm just going to leave it there. But it's more like, I feel like Oda's kind of leading you into, if based on prior information, you wouldn't be wrong for assuming that Noah was this or that. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this dialogue is trying to reinforce that.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it's something I know. I hope that I don't forget, because I know we'll be talking about it in like a couple weeks.
No boy. Well, that'll be interesting. Well, of course, Hody starts rubbing in. He's like, you said you were going to protect everything. What are you going to do now? I was like, well, no, I'll stop it. I'll smash it to pieces. And they're like, no.
No. Yeah, that does have, again, Noah is definitely the most interesting wrinkle into this final bout, where now not only is it about to drop on Fishman Island, but because it's not even that it has cultural significance as much as like, no, this thing has a purpose, and we're not supposed to break it.
And they're just like, we have to hope that Vanderdecken's not dead. Wake him up and have it go back after Shirahoshi, so we can just divert it away. So they basically try to head towards the ship, and that's when Hody shows up and basically tries to take out Shirahoshi. Thanks to, I think it's Momboshi, he takes the hit for her.
Yep.
It's not looking so good, and God, I have to say, just the outright strength Luffy has at this point, that he can put his hands through the bubble, get close, and still just do some massive damage to Hody.
Although it looks like Hody bites into him still, but I do kind of like that Luffy he's able to just like zoom over from inside the bubble.
That's the other thing, is like, how strong is that bubble? Because I would have thought Hody would have popped the bubble with that bite, but I guess we have to assume that he put his head through the bubble to bite Luffy. But you'd think he'd just bite the bubble and destroy it that way.
And that would kill him. Yeah. And then I love that, like, Luffy comments that, like, apparently his armament hockey is not quite enough to block the bite.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Rayleigh did say that there's specialization, so I guess he's not quite good enough at armament hockey. He's got some of the others, but not armament is not quite up to snuff.
Yeah.
So I like that he's not like a master of all of them. We are starting to see chips in the armor.
and well, I think in this case it is just like this is such a hyper specific extenuating circumstance of like, yeah, Luffy's trapped in a bubble underwater, and only in this circumstance is Hody able to actually get like a good bite in, because otherwise when they were on land, quote unquote, Luffy was manhandling him.
And I guess here is kind of our explanation, because Hody's like, oh, you want to fight on the falling ship because of the air on the deck. Well, let's get rid of that. And he says the larger a cut, the less the bubble can handle it. So it can be cut. I guess the bubbles are just better than the coating that the humans do on the surface.
Yeah.
And that's enough to release all the water, which theoretically this might have just killed Vanderdecken.
That is also true. I mean, hey, at this point, if he wasn't dead already, he certainly is not in great. He's not doing great right now.
Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, what are we going to do? All the air is gone, and how are we going to do this? Fukaboshi tries his ultramarine attack to take him down. Of course, not exactly effective, but he does ask, how can you do these things, Hody? And that's when he gets sliced by that shark fin. And it just asks, what are you? You bear the vengeance against humankind, the rage of the Fishman people, and turn that back against Fishman Island. So you've chosen not to conquer the island and instead wipe it off the map. And you even turn your back on your friends. So you despise humans more than anybody else. And once you've done all these things, what do you have left? What in the world happened to you in the past? What did humans do to hurt you? And we don't hear it. Hody responds, and it shocks all of them. Well, shocks Fukaboshi and seemingly Shirahoshi. I don't know if Luffy hears it, but it's like, what did he say?
Yeah, no, that feels like it's planting an interesting seed. And I'm wondering at this point too, while I'm reading this, I'm just kind of like, yeah, because the way that Fukaboshi just kind of lays it all out, it's like, what even is the point of all of this? Just like, just mindless hatred.
Yeah, it's just rage spread out in all directions. No specific target anymore.
It really feels. This is sort of the end game of Hody's worldview, of just like, you don't even care. You're just here for pure destruction, and you've betrayed all your friends.
So why did you do it? What did humans do? And that's the big question. At least at this point, we do find out, but at this point, we don't know yet. And I was like, I was really intrigued by that because I could not remember what the reason was. But Luffy gets contacted because the guys from the air tank that they met before going after Hody, when Fukaboshi first saved Luffy, they got things set up because we got to go to the air tank. We may need a whole lot of air. Be on guard so you can fire the island's air regulating cannon at a moment's notice. So just in case, because Hody is definitely not going to let you fight on even ground, we're going to find a way to help you out. So we have that all set up, and we have a freaking air bubble being aimed to launch right at the Noah. However, it is noted there's no buoyancy to this bubble. It's just going to cover it and provide an air pocket so that Luffy can breathe. So it's like, oh, there's an interesting wrinkle, but man, does it seem like Noah's falling fast.
Yeah, this is where the situation really starts to feel desperate. And I do like at this point, and you can kind of tell that we're near the end where it feels like, okay, everybody is kind of coming together, right? Like everybody's trying to do their part just to kind of get this across the finish line.
Mm-hmm. And Hody goes in for another attack, trying to just stop them from getting to the Noah. And Luffy is able to catch the shark fin blade with his fists, rip it off, and punch Hody away.
Yeah, which is just great.
She's like, it doesn't matter how much I have to shorten my life, I'm going to have my revenge. And we're heading towards that final confrontation on board the Noah when we get contacted by Fukaboshi saying, I finally know Hody's true nature. And that's how we end.
Yeah. Oh,
it's like,
boy.
Intriguing.
Yeah. And I don't want to lean on this too much because we've already talked about it a whole bunch, but that final little speech from Hody where, like, at this point, he doesn't care what becomes of himself. And it feels like that is sort of the ultimate fate as, like, a vessel of hatred.
It's like he hates everything and is even willing to destroy his own body for that sake. And that's just kind of sad. He truly is a pathetic creature. And
yeah.
Again, we'll be getting into that more as things go on. But let's go ahead and get to chapter 642, Lost All Face. And nice 2-page spread where they're waiting to go to the beach. Got all loaded up.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of a sweet scene. I like it.
It almost looks like Luffy's trying to hitchhike.
A little bit. It's fun. Before all that was happening, we go back to a few minutes and see how things are going. And specifically checking in on Cammy and Hachi and everybody else, seeing how they're doing. It's like wondering what's going on. And even Hachi's like, Captain Tiger must have been afraid of this very thing.
I do kind of like that, as Hachi points out, like, yeah, if it was a fair fight, Jinbei and the Straw Hats would have wasted them. Too true. True.
Very true. But yeah, basically, hey, we saw Noah was about to land on the island. It's time to evacuate. So
get out.
Shirahoshi lured Noah away. We need to go. And the rest of the island is finally learning what's happening at the plaza. And, it's like we got to go. We got to get out of here. What's happening here? And the minister of, I think it's the left, I don't know, the catfish dude finds Neptune and seeing what's going on. Is like, yeah, let's evacuate. And Neptune's like, yeah, you guys evacuate. I'm waiting for the princes.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the seahorse minister arrives at the plaza and sees the chaos of,
she's like, what the heck?
That's a lot of pirates. A lot of them are knocked out, and the Straw Hats and Jinbei seem to be fighting them. What in the world is happening? They sort of figure it all out. It's like, okay, so it looks like the Straw Hats are actually trying to protect us. And we arrested them with false charges. We can't let that happen. So let's give them the respect of our assistance. So let's get in there and do what we can. And all you guys hanging out at the plaza, get out of here. We need to go. You need to go evacuate. And they're like, no, they're standing up for us. How can we turn our back?
Naturally, this was always going to happen. And I kind of kept that in the back of my mind when I was kind of complaining about this at the beginning of the arc, where it was just like, oh yeah, the grounds on which they accused the Straw Hats was always really stupid. But I'm glad now. It's like, okay, yes, like we have bigger problems. Let's help out.
Yeah. They're like, okay, fine. You guys can decide whether you stay or not, but we need to go. We need to just do what we can. And look who's back. It's, I think it was Hammond was his name?
I think so, yeah, the hammerhead guy.
The long-necked guy that they first met when they arrived in Fishman Island and took care of no problem. He has himself a slave tank.
I'm glad that they point this out later. I was like, this is very Celestial Dragon coded.
Oh, yeah, it is. He just one passes out and they start dragging him along. And it's like, cut him free, load up a new one. And I think it's very pointed that Robin's the one that looks at this and says, what a terrible thing to do. Because, she was a slave for a very short time.
Yep.
But Watatsumi is showing off what he can do with Mega Monk Intimidation. And he made himself even bigger. And Sanji's like, is there a point to do that? Well, I'm a Fugu fish man, so like all that is like, well, okay, so why are you talking so fast now? It's like, oh, I got to talk fast before my air leaks out. Well, the Kraken's still bigger than you. Well, I'm going to go even bigger.
Well, so he just baited him completely.
He starts crushing the fishmen around him.
Yeah, it's just, man, this particular bit with Sanji in particular just really has me like, oh, they don't care.
No.
they don't care.
Mm-hmm. It's also quite interesting that when Robin goes into battle mode, she puts on her new sunglasses.
You know, I think I kind of complain about the sunglasses, but I think having the sunglasses on is kind of like the Robin throughout this whole like next scene with her sunglasses on is pretty great.
Oh yeah. Because she has a conversation with Jinbei where he wants her to free all the human slaves. It's like, hey, if they're pirates who hate us and seek to destroy us, we'll fight them off. But these men are not even human. So I can't let Hody act like a celestial dragon any longer.
Yep. There's
your comparison. So it's like, all right, I'll take care of it. Meanwhile, Frankie is still fighting Icaros. It's not feathers, but he goes, they're just spitballs. But Frankie goes to punch him in the head and explodes his head, except it's, ink. It's just ink. Didn't actually bust his head open. And he's like, you've messed with officers and Frankie just fires fireball at him. Doesn't even let him talk.
Yeah. It feels like we kind of repeat a couple jokes in this set. Like that, like without really kind of adding any kind of twist to it. I'm not complaining in particular about like the Frankie fireball thing. It's great, but it is also just like the same thing as his machine gun gag.
Yeah. He just opens up and then he's like, oh, he shot the fireball. So,
yep.
Okay.
Yep.
But we do get a chance for Chopper to show off with his heavy point that we haven't seen up to this point, where he punches the hammerhead's hammer and actually deflects it. It hurts his hand, but he still did it.
Yeah, it was just pretty impressive. But then we get kind of like the full body reveal of it, and I'm sorry, I hate this thing.
Yeah, the monstrous body and the Chopper face, like the smaller Chopper face, looks terrible.
And the weird like fur collar like cylinder thing he's got going on. I think like Oda will kind of adjust the proportions a little bit from what I like this feels wide even compared to what it becomes later, but I still think just from a design standpoint it's pretty bad. I really don't like this form. And I feel like he went out of his way, to have this little dialogue with Zoro about like, hey, he doesn't mind looking this like a monster if it's for Luffy, and that's like cute and all, but like it's still a bad design.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't look good. It's just,
yeah,
I like
exactly.
I like the intention. The design is just not.
That's a good way to put it.
Zoro goes to take on Hyozu's like, I was giving you a chance to escape from my reach, but you really should just bring me the actual strongest swordsman on Fishman Island because you're not worth my time at all.
Yeah, no, speaking of Sanji, it feels like Sanji's bored, Zoro's bored.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just not. They don't care.
They're propping up the Hyozu for the longest time, and Zoro is just like, no, I'm bored. Yeah, like, you're boring me.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But that's how the chapter ends. We do have an SBS this time around, though. And we get some information on Luffy's hockey. So he's like, okay, so Luffy can knock out 50,000 with his hockey. How many can Shanks knock out with his? And Oda's like, well, if they were in the exact same situation, Shanks and Rayleigh could probably manage up to 100,000. But you really can't compare how many in different situations. Defeating someone with hockey is a phenomenon that occurs only when the user is overwhelmingly more powerful than the opponent. Basically, it's showing how many of Luffy's opponents weren't even worth fighting. If Luffy were facing 100,000 pirates of certain strength, he might not be able to knock out a single one. But by training and practicing the hockey of the Supreme King, you can pick out a few in the crowd and spare them from its effects, which we did see with Rayleigh.
Yes, and I think this really is just like the further extrapolating from what we saw in Marineford, where, back when Luffy couldn't control his Supreme King hockey. And I feel like it might have been somewhat targeted towards the folks who were trying to execute Ace. But like that was, a crowd full of people who were way stronger than Luffy, and they were just kind of like, whoa, like they felt it, but like they didn't get passed out or anything.
Right. That's a good way to put it. It's fascinating in that way. I like the rules we have sort of for hockey is very interesting. It's just like, okay, I can have a lot of people, but also not waste our time fighting all those people because This
Yeah.
just it's a measurement of Luffy's strength in comparison to all of them. Yeah, those 50,000 weren't even strong enough.
Yeah. I don't think there will be another scene quite like it in the manga ever again. We're like, oh yeah, Luffy is so far and away above his opponents that he'll just, they will start dropping like flies.
No, I things will
it-
certainly start to even up as they get into the new world.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I think that doesn't sound like I'm spoiling anything, but saying like Luffy's gonna fight strong people, and it won't be as easy as just knocking them out with Supreme King Haki.
You don't say. Well, let's get to chapter 643, Phantom. And it's time to see the Monkey Mountain Alliance again. Apparently they're
I
seeking...
missed these guys.
Yeah, I honestly kind of forgot about them a little bit, but as soon as I saw them, I was like, oh, that's cool. And apparently they're searching for Nakroa, the Island of Dreams. So they're chasing their dreams still. But I also love how the one is dressed up with Luffy with the hat, and he even has the beetle that Luffy was hunting around that time.
God, that's so good. This one feels like it hits home because it's like these are people that like Luffy helped on. It was like a very short stop on, in Jaya on the way to Skypiea. But like, look at how Luffy has influenced their lives.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I just think that is a wonderful reminder.
Absolutely. I love Decks of the World. Like, it's not a cohesive story, but it is so nice to just check on old friends.
This actually, I think, might be better than most cover stories.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. It absolutely is. There's just much more of a connection. You just have that one little check-in. It's like, that's how they're doing. You don't need a whole storyline for a lot of these characters.
Exactly. Yeah, you're one and done, and that it kind of makes you more excited to be like, all right, who are we going to see next?
Yeah, that's a good way.
Well, actually, we're getting into Skypiea, folks, and in Jaya probably. So I guess we're done with Alabasta.
So man, we're catching up in arcs.
Yeah, right. That's great. There's been 26 of these.
We get into the chapter itself. The fighting with the Neptune army is already underway. They are cleaning house now, and here comes Robin with all her arms coming out, just freeing all the slaves. The shackles are off. And as soon as that happens, they toss over the slave tank, and it's like, okay, we don't have to listen to him anymore.
I love this panel of Robin.
I love how they're just like, why'd you save us? Oh, I can't turn down a request from a handsome man. You should thank Jinbei.
Yeah, she thinks Jinbei's handsome, and I have to agree.
She's not wrong. She's not wrong. We also get to see the craziness of how her powers have extended even further, where Hammond traps her in a net, and then she has another one of herself from the hips up come out from Hammond's back, use multiple arms from that one to grab him around the neck even further, and then have another one from the hips up, grab him from the legs, so she can basically do a double clutch and break him in two in both ways.
It's awesome.
It's like, damn, Robin.
Yeah, no, I kind of forgot that she could do this. Like the way that she could I mean, she was already scary as an assassin, but now this just feels like, oh, I can just like spawn parts of multiples of myself and just kill you.
I wonder, like, it's way too deep, and they're never going to get into it, but man, spawning another you, basically cloning yourself. What is the thought process there? What are you thinking?
Yeah, like, I don't know.
Whew, it is freaky in its own right. That's for sure. Yeah. The pirates are free, and they're like, yeah, the human slaves are all loose, and they're just going to go for it. It's like the fishmen are running out of allies.
Very, very much so.
But I do love this fight between Brook and Zio, where he tries to go invisible again, and Brook is able to just stab him. I just like, oh, he's talking, so cool, I got him. And he's just like, I ruined the tip of your sword, of course, that whole thing. But he does get off his hidden flail to yank off Brook's head, and that's when we get how Brook was able to become more powerful.
It's funny that we are just now learning how the revive fruit works. Because he himself lived all this time and had no idea.
There was not really reason to learn, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, in order to remain in the world of the living, his soul has to expend an enormous amount of energy, almost that of a living body. But by playing music, I can rock the souls of others, drawing them into my world and even showing them illusions. Once removed from my body, I found my soul was visible to others. I truly do exist in the world of the living. And that power keeps me alive in this world. It's not organs or flesh or blood. It's the power of my own soul. And
he's just reattaches his head. And I love that panel of Zia just screaming. This gag of him trying to play off, he screams and then he's just like, now I'm ready to fight. That one got me.
That actually is a really good one. But yeah, I love this. He has a new sword forged by the Long Arm clan, and its name is Soul Solid. And he's able to like imbue his soul within the sword, and like freeze them with this blade. That's awesome.
I feel like this is weird out to the point where like Brook feels like he has properly differentiated himself. And a lot of that is just kind of the unfortunate timing of like, yeah, okay, we added another swordsman to the group, and he has a couple of different things, like that make him different. He has, the music thing that makes him different from Zoro. But it really was just like, okay, we got him, and then we're all gone. So it feels really gratifying. Like now he really feels like he feels properly separate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now we have the whole soul power thing to really
exactly
make him different from Zoro, which we needed. We definitely needed. But we move over to Usopp, who is very confidently taking on this Darume, whatever, and dodging all stuff, shooting. It's like, all you've done is shoot wildly and miss. It's like, no, I'm just setting all the traps. It'll take, 3 moves for me to snipe at you, then you're done for. And I like how Usopp is just like, man, I lost my edge. In the past, I'd total huge whopper, but now I can actually make it happen.
That's so good.
So cool for him.
Yes. It's just like, I don't need to lie anymore. Like, oh, that's so cold.
What a difference between Usopp when he first fought Fishman to now.
Yeah. There's just, I love this Usopp.
We get a call from one of the small transponder snail. And I don't have any time to report. Please pass on the message to the rest of the kingdom. Noah's lost momentum, falling back to straight back to Fishman Island. So link up our administrative transponder snail and broadcast to our troops across the island. So yeah, everybody on the island starts hearing this message. Noah's falling, get off the island, evacuate. And that's when all of a sudden they hear them talking to Luffy about getting the air tank set up, and Noah's in our sights, so we're going to do all this. So they start hearing that and realizing Shirahoshi and Straw Hat, the entire island's realizing this now, are working together to save the entire island. Even the border guards are asking a human pirate for help. And it's like, wait, they're trying to know all this? And then we also get Fukaboshi talking. It's like, oh yeah, I know Hody's true nature. And that's when everything gets caught up at this point from the end of the last chapter. And just like, no, Hody's a monster born from his environment. The new Fishman pirates are monsters created by hatred. They live in fear of their ancestors' hatred being forgotten, live in fear of the day that the anger is at the humans is forgotten. They live in the hope that their holy war is just, that the humans are all evil. They desire blood. They do not even want peace for Fishman Island. What does Hody believe in? We finally get it revealed. What did humans do to him? Nothing. And I had such a moment of like, oh, hell yes, when I saw that panel. I was so excited because holy crap, that was the entire point of Hody. We were talking about how he just knows nothing. He's such a nothing villain. He doesn't have anything of that to him, and it feels excruciating by that point. But here comes Oda saying, yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, he sucks. well, hold on. Because I do think that, like, you can be sort of, like, you can be thematically rich, but also, like, kind of not entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
Just, as a point of fiction.
It's not like he's any more entertaining now, but I like that there's a point.
Yeah, and the point is that he's pointless. Mm-hmm. And it is sort of again, I feel like the core message of the story really is just how much those cycles of hatred are so often fueled by nothing. And it's the way that like Fukaboshi's speech, talks about like, it's about like fear, right? It's about fear of the other. It's about fear of being forgotten. It's sort of like the easiest thing in the world to believe is that like your actions are just and that you're fighting for the right cause. And I feel like this is honestly still really reflective of the world we kind of live in today, right?
Oh, it's absolutely reflective of the world we live in today. Maybe more so than ever before, considering like
probably more than when it's like 2012.
Oh yeah, like holy crap, is it thematically relevant to what's going on?
It does kind of hit, and it hits different now, and that's always sort of like the core. I feel like oh boy, try not to get too real, but like when you're stoking like hatred of others and you're doing it for like a political gain, right? Like it's sort of what Hody represents, right? It's like it doesn't even matter if what you're saying is like the truth, or if like the like whether or not you have substance is not the point. It is about maintaining that fear. It is just about like power at the end of the day. It is the way, kind of like what we were talking about with the Fisher Tiger flashback, about how much I loved like the stories kind of got manipulated to benefit people in power, or and to benefit, you will twist the facts in whatever way best benefits your narrative. And I feel like, again, Hody is just kind of the end game of this. Is just like whatever spawned the hatred in the first place doesn't even matter.
Nope.
Right? Yeah.
Nope. There's entirely, and as we look at our last line, there's no substance to them.
Ain't that right?
Yep. Oh man. Again, doesn't make it more interesting, but man, does it make it thematically relevant. And I gotta give props to Oda for that.
Yeah, I do. I like this a whole lot, and it just I do feel like I have to temper my praise somewhat with just like that does not save my problems with the story arc or with Hody as a villain. And I think you could have still written a more interesting and threatening, and you could have just had a better villain with this same message. But I understand what he was trying to get across.
Yeah, because as we've seen with over time, is that Hody's just sort of become more and more unleashed. It's just hatred in all directions. And
yeah. It's just like it doesn't. That's sort of the no substance, right? Like he has no actual morals or worldview, And I think that's what the flashback did such a good job of establishing, of these characters who may have been doing the right or wrong thing, but were doing it just because they had their own interpretation of justice, or what they thought was the right thing to do. But like, yeah, Hody he has none of that. He's a fraud, And again, that also not too dissimilar to real life.
Nope. That's for sure.
It's just like, this is what happens when you have no actual values.
Yep. You are absolutely correct. So we'll see how that develops as we continue on. But before that, we do have a slight SBS where we get to see Garps and Goku, Kizaru, Akainu, and Aokiji as kids. And only Sengoku looks like he would eventually become part of the Navy.
I like that he had he had an afro even back then.
Garp should have become a pirate. Look at him. He looks.
Yeah.
I like how much he looks like Luffy.
He looks like Luffy. He's got a pipe like Sabo.
He's got a treasure chest. Like, what changed him from the pirate path to the Navy path? That's interesting question right there. Probably never going to be answered.
I'm genuinely curious. I wonder what a young dragon looks like now.
Oh,
if he also has attributes that are also like Luffy. You're just like, how, because when you look at, and I feel like this, I don't want to go on too much of a tangent, but I feel like it feels very purposeful that what we see of like the monkey family is they're all very different. But I feel like deep in their core, they're actually very similar.
I think you're absolutely right when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, our three admirals are certainly came from poverty. It looks like.
Yeah. Wow. I do wonder if there's something there. That feels too specific.
Yeah. Like, Aokiji looks like he's specifically is being picked on by something and just hates it. Kizaru is just freezing cold, but just like, whatever. And Akihinu, if I saw a kid like that, I'd run in the other direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I feel like I can extrapolate so much from these circumstances of, like, how their forms of justice have formed. And it just, oh man, the Admirals are such fascinating characters.
Yeah, they are. You really do want to learn more about them. Yeah, let's move on to chapter 644, To Nothing. And we get to see what the freaking birds are up to in Jaya.
I love it, yeah.
The South Bird loves the North Bird, and plus here's West Bird and East Bird.
Yeah, hey, good to know. I bet Oda had these designs probably planned out, and it's just like, well, okay, there was no time for it.
Probably. People are already running, trying to figure out what's going on, and they're hearing all of this. It's like, what are they trying to say? It's like, oh God, I see Noah coming down. And every time you see Hody now, he is just completely lost it. Like, he is just craze-faced at every point.
I do want to jump back real quick. I do love on the second panel of the first page, you can just see the hatching in the sky that's like the little bit implying that Noah is coming down. I just think that's really cool.
I completely missed that. That is really cool. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Blotting out the light.
yeah, basically. Yeah.
Oh boy. But yeah, Hody's looking really crazy right now. Like, he is just completely lost his mind. And where did it all begin? Arlong. Humans are inferior. Never forget that, Hody. Their existence is evil. We're crash course with death. Fishman Island is ruined. It's all the humans' fault. And then we have like a memorial. It's like, he blew up one of the slave shops on the surface. He made a supreme sacrifice to accomplishment, but he took out 8 humans with him. Oh, cool. That's wow. One guy blowing up 8 people. That's your cause is so effective. And we get to see Hody and all the others as kids and just like, they're so cool doing that.
Yeah, remember what we were talking about the kids earlier.
And then here comes Arlong after sinking a human pirate ship. Is like, this is a holy war. And just going over all of his thoughts and stories. Their answer is oppression. These human worms choking the land above use their only advantage, numbers. You must curse the humans for this. And meanwhile, here's Hachi telling the other kids, no, I've known a human named Rayleigh for years. He's a strange one, but never shrunk back from in disgust from me. And I do like the little point if we could see Charlie.
It feels like probably from a young age. Actually, wow. Oh, I didn't think about like the age difference between Arlong and Charlie, but Arlong here is an adult and she's just a little girl.
Yeah, it's a pretty massive difference, but I like how she already has her crystal ball. Like, she's already got that aspect of herself.
Yeah.
Man, Hody's just saying, I don't like your stories, Hachi. They make me sick.
Just choosing to believe one narrative over another. And I feel like this is so much, again, of like, this is what Otohime was trying to avoid, and what she had realized very quickly was how much what we communicate from generation to generation, like what we tell the kids, they will take with them. And so now we're kind of seeing the divide between, here are the kids who got told that humans are bad and evil, and here are the ones who like, look at things with a more nuanced perspective. And I feel like even the difference here is like, yes, Arlong is wrong for thinking this way, but his beliefs are also driven by experience and his environment, right? And so that, to me, it's sort of portraying that like it's a different type of hatred than what is inherited, right? Like, it is sort of the direct experience versus, Hody's basically just like he's like a cover artist.
Yeah, this is how you should feel. It's an odd way to put it, but the people like, this video game is bad, you shouldn't play it, so people stay away. That type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a weird thing. This movie's bad, but then you check out later, it's like, no, I actually kind of like this. Maybe not, I understand why they didn't like it, but it was, I dug it, that sort of thing.
Yeah, very much so.
It's an odd comparison, but it's the first thing that came to mind.
I know what you mean, though, right? Like, it really is just that direct experience. And again, we talk all the time, just like, Arlong did bad things. He's not a good person, but you see his perspective and you see what drove him to believe that way. And I really like this sequence because it really, again, I feel like is also very true to life. Is, you know, the adults will impart those lessons onto the children, and even if the adults maybe have experiences that like shape their beliefs in one way or another, like that's very different than just like a child will just accept that, you know, because they don't know any better.
Yeah, and because of that story that they spread, that Arlong spread whenever Tiger died about humans not giving him a blood transplant, that affected Hody in his belief system, and along with all the other the officers. They did outright declare that Tiger wasn't their chosen hero either. And then we got something that was just like, oh hell, Oda going for the jugular with this, because they have them put black masks on, harass a family that gave a human blood because he was dying before his eyes, and set fire to their house. And I don't know about Japan, but that has some distinct social commentary in America.
Look, we opened this arc by saying, oh, the Fishman District is the hood. It became very like clear how much this conflict is informed by like American political strife, gang violence. Like, is it really that much of a stretch to be like, oh yeah, the KKK is here too?
Yeah, I mean, you did say that the Fishman Island is kind of based on America, and there it really is. And I remember a few weeks ago when we started reading this, we never got a chance to bring it up on the podcast. And I wanted to remind you here because I think it's the most appropriate. Where, remember when you were talking about Arlong and how he's very black coded? And you weren't sure about that?
Oh, yes, in the live action.
Yes.
Flash, if you listen to our review of the live action, I remember, because one thing that the live action did was a lot of Arlong's dialogue felt very informed by... I was surprised because the stuff we're talking about now was kind of like moved up and informed Arlong's character and his speeches in the live action show in a way that I felt like was very intentionally not done in the manga, right? Because they really wanted you... I feel like Oda wanted you to have that experience of kind of associating the Fishmen, Arlong specifically, with like as the villains until you learn like, oh no, like they're not all like that and they're not all bad. So it felt like Oda withholding that information was very purposeful. And I really... A main criticism, it was more of a, like, I had reservations, I think I was how I would put it, about, like, the way that the Arlong pirates are depicted in the live action, because it's like, they have, like, a hip-hop backed track, Arlong's played by a black actor, things like that. It's like, it feels like the things that how they were depicting the Fishmen was very, I guess it was, like, my memories of it were more general racial strife and not a very specific American black kind of racial strife.
Yeah.
So now that we're at this point, I'm just kind of like, oh no, okay. They're just like, that's just the text.
Yeah. They're just playing that now.
I would like to formally retract my criticism of that stuff because it turns out it was in the manga all along.
Yep. That's for sure. So yeah, we continue with this flashback. It's just like as they get older, it's like now they want to forgive humans, and Jinbei's one of the 7 warlords, and Arlong's crew is the only force trying to keep the proper balance between species. And now you've got the whole Otohime shot by humans. See, this is what humans do. So we don't need this worthless country.
I do like that they were never going to like Otohime in the first place. They didn't care, but now that she's dead, they're going to use her death, to further their narrative, which again, also pretty true to life.
Yep. And Hody somehow got himself the legendary drug. I don't know where he got it, but I
feel like this whole drug thing is really hand waved.
Yeah, Zio's somehow able to replicate it. But yeah, then getting into the whole, this is a holy war. Begin the preparations. So just kill as many humans as you can as long as you're alive. Wow. It's just, again, just
There's a lot there, huh?
Oh boy. There's not even just subtext. This is just text.
No, it's, man, see, this stuff I like a whole lot. This, I feel like is some really, really good, pardon the pun, but like the commentary is biting. Like it feels really sharp.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Because you can take it at face value, but if you really dig into it, I was like, holy crap.
The one last thing before we move on, because I know I'm rambling about this stuff a lot. Again, not unlike that kind of uncomfortable, like, collar tugging I felt about the Shandians in Skypiea, the way that it was like, oh, we're doing the whole Native American thing. Oh God, now this is like, it is so easy to just step into the rake on this one. And I feel like there's a similar kind of oh God to this here about the way Oda is sort of really, I think, smartly towing the line, right, between, like, we are dealing with the sort of the tragedy of, like, a racial minority class, basically, right? And I think it is really tricky to depict that kind of, like, internal strife, because you don't really want to frame the right things as wrong or the wrong things as right, if that makes sense, right? Like, you don't want to just be like, oh, they're all bad, right? Or like, right, oh, they're all stupid for believing this. And so you have to really be
because they're kind of justified in their hatred, as we've seen many times. So
and it's, I think it is a very specific, the way that Oda is like, the previous generation is justified, or maybe not justified, but you learn why they did the exactly. And I think that goes so much further than just being like imagine if I think I would be a lot more upset at this kind of narrative if we didn't have the older fishermen and it was just Hody and it was just, we are righteous, this is our holy war, we are the oppressed class that is going to rise up and make things right. But they're good, but they're doing it in the wrong way, and that's why the hero has to beat them.
Yes.
That is the kind of thing that I really don't like in fiction.
And it's one of those things where, as we'll get into with this next section, actually I might save it for there when we actually talk about the next part of this whole thing. But it's amazing how much this metaphor, example, whatever you want to call it, just continues on, where Fukaboshi realizes after we lost the hearts of the Fishman district, they became the darkest emotions of Fishman Island, cut off from the rest of the populace. So basically, we ignored them. We knew that the hatred was building up, but we only wanted to look like we were doing better with the signatures and all that stuff. We only pretended to make progress. He starts crying. We're too late for them. They were what the mother feared most. We should have started by fighting inward and taking care of all of that. But she ended up being murdered because of the hatred of Fishman Island. And that's why she begged not to let hatred consume us.
Yeah. This is really tricky to me because, oh God, you know, talking about like really complicated lines to toe here. Like, he's not wrong. I don't disagree with this, but it, like, I guess sort of the idea of like, I don't want it to just be like, oh, the solution was to just be above it all the time, you know, as if to be like, and I'm not saying that Oda is necessarily downplaying the role that humans played in all of this, but I don't 100% agree with like framing it as strictly a Fishman issue either. And I do think he does a good job here of kind of towing that line, but it is one of those things where I'm like, really? Are you sure? Because you're kind of you are forgetting kind of what was the catalyst for all of this. And well, the catalyst for this specific issue, and again, you know, I do agree with the sentiment of like, yes, it was convenient to just kind of bury the past and forget like, oh yeah, there are these people here. We'll just kind of let them see that, not to forget about it. But like, this is one side of a very complicated issue.
Oh, it's extremely complicated. And I mean, there's no easy way to go over this, because yes, humans are at fault, but they also realize that we can't cut them off completely, because there are good humans out there. We need to find the good in them. And I think that maybe gets to the perhaps to the core of what Oda's getting to, where you got to find the good in humans, but you also got to recognize the hatred in fishmen, and you got to find ways to rectify those. It's not easy. It is not easy, but it's something you got to take care of. And if that hate festers, well, then as you said, you get the hood that is for the Fishman district. And I mean, that just, I don't know if this is intentional or not. I have no right whatsoever to talk about it, but it just made me think of it. But it is a little bit like the black on black violence you hear about at times, and it's how that, like, ostensibly it's like we shouldn't be fighting each other, but we still end up doing it because of the hatred that we feel and within the outlet and the how stuck they can feel.
Yeah, and I actually really like that you bring that up, because it is in a similar kind of way, you know, of talking about real life issues of like, there's so much more going on there systematically, right? Like, if you take 5 seconds to think about why things are the way that they are, and, you know, kind of like dealing with the consequences of the actions of the past. I think what makes this work for me so much in One Piece, again, is the sort of the themes that I always really like from Oda, of being critical of kind of systems and the circumstances that led us to get here, while also being deeply empathetic towards the people who have to live day to day in those systems. Mm-hmm. And I do think like there is sort of a empathy being kind of the driving force here of both the victims and perpetrators of discrimination, and in the ways, you know, in the ways that we saw the Fishmen emulate the celestial dragons, right, and how they treat humans as slaves. It to me is so much more of an indictment of the system that they currently live in, if that makes sense, right? Like at the end of the day, yes, there is this conflict between fishmen, between interpersonal conflict between fishmen, fishmen to fishmen and fishmen to human, but at the end of the day, it is neither the fishmen nor the regular people who made things this way. It's them.
Yeah. So it's a hell of a speech.
And I like the end of the speech from Fukaboshi about, like, you know, we don't need our past, reduce it to nothing. I like how Noah is being used as kind of a symbol, right? Of like, it is sort of, I mean, it is, you know, literally a relic of the past, and has done nothing wrong. You know, it's just a big old ship. But the idea of like, no, this is something of our heritage that needs to be, is it something that needs to be protected, or is it going to be something that's going to kill us? And here in this moment, it's decided like let this destroy this thing that's holding us back. Right. Yeah. And I think that's ultimately the message. Not necessarily Noah, you know, but it's more of what Noah is representing right now as kind of
it's literally their past dragging them down. Which
exactly.
is also represented by Hody. And it's the whole thing. It's like, I'd rather Fishman Island be destroyed than, you know, have Hody's hatred take over. So it really comes down to the common folks' refutation of that hatred and the hope that they can move on beyond it and perhaps get that equal footing that they truly desire.
Yes.
And, you know, he asks Luffy to reduce it to nothing, to take care of all this. And Luffy just responds, yeah, from the moment we landed in the square, we and Jinbei decided that we wouldn't let anyone on Fish Island be hurt. So leave it to us. We're friends, aren't we? And there it is.
That's my goat.
We're friends. That's bam. You're friends with Luffy. You're set.
Yes, and God, that panel of Fukaboshi just sobbing just hits me, and the way in which, God, we were talking this whole chapter about complicated racial history, and Luffy's just like, we're friends, aren't we? And like that's what it's all about at the end of the day, and
exactly.
that's
this
what
human accepted them, and that's
I love it.
And that immediately gets a bunch of fishermen, the people who were escaping, be like, no, I'm not running anymore. I'm staying right here. And the artillery people managed to get a bubble right around the Noah, so it's all set to go. And Luffy and Shirahoshi together, so he can make sure to to protect her. And that's when Luffy declares this is going to be over in a snap.
He's not wrong.
And he stretches it out. Even outside of it's in the water right now, which is amazing. Gear 2 armament, Gum Gum fire fist pistol, which I was like, oh shit. he took freaking Ace's technique for this, and bam, just Red Hawk straight into Hody, and seems to explode out the back. It feels like he just pierced Hody's entire body with that.
100%.
Holy crap.
Well, there's two things in particular I love talking about on this podcast. One is racism, and two is nerdy kanji stuff. Because Red Hawk is one of my favorite Luffy techniques. If you're wondering how he was able to spawn fire underwater, there is both a very simple and very complicated answer to that question that we will come to at a later date. I
didn't even think about it because it was like, oh, so cool.
It's hype. Exactly. It's hype, which is really the answer at the end of the day, is that it's cool. But there's one of those like, well, okay, so, you know, it's gear 2, so it generates heat, blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't say that Oda will sit you down and stare at you in the face and tell you this is exactly how it works, but there are I think multiple valid interpretations that are both very simple and very complicated.
Oh my gosh.
But the kanji part, right? Oh my god, I'm getting distracted. So the manga translation here, I think, did their best with it by calling it Gum Gum Fire Fist Pistol. In Japanese, this technique is just called Gomu Gomu no Reddo Hoku. And so if you're wondering where the Fire Fist Pistol part comes from, it's in the kanji. Oh boy, now I feel like I have to explain how reading kanji works, and that, you know, kanji are basically, you know, they're the Chinese characters imported from China, and they're, you know, each individual character has both a meaning and a sound attached to it. And often multiple sounds in Japanese, because again, it's complicated. And so one thing they do is that they have this thing called furigana, which is basically like a little reading guide that they'll put on top of the kanji to say, this is how you read this, right? Like, this is how you pronounce it, but this is the kanji is the meaning, and the furigana is the pronunciation. How it's supposed to be used is that it's for like, for kids, basically, right? Like, if a kid doesn't know how to read a kanji, they'll put a furigana on top of it to say, this is how you're supposed to read it. And as you could imagine, that is where fiction authors get to commit all sorts of crimes.
Oh no.
Where they can just be like, I'm gonna assign the kanji for this, and I'm gonna give it like the reading will be completely unrelated. And so it's sort of like a Japanese form of doublespeak in fiction. Oh, no. Sorry, I'm rambling about this. No, what I'm trying to get at is that this technique, the Gomu Gomu no Reddo Hoku. So with Red Hawk is the furigana, and the kanji that it is using is fire fist and pistol. And literally the kanji that Ace used for fire fist, and the kanji that Luffy had with Gum Gum Pistol. So it's both. And I appreciate that the translation here put it before Red Hawk to like try to preserve the meaning somewhat.
Yeah. It does add that emphasis that it's a combination of him and Ace's moves.
Yes. And the anime has a different problem with this, because you can't speak kanji.
Oh no.
So what they did instead is they still called it Gomu Gomu no Reddo Hoku, but they overlaid Ace while Luffy was doing the attack.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's sort of like, here's the visual. We want to kind of really bring it home that this is Luffy basically, you know, memorializing Ace with a fire-based attack. So
I mean, I still appreciate it. It's still cool.
Exactly. It's really, again, at the end of the day, it's just cool. And it's one of my favorite attacks from Luffy, and I always get hype anytime we see it. And knowing that it is like just his nod to Ace is just the best.
It's so good. But yeah, that's the end of that chapter. Let's move on to chapter 645. Death is another form of revenge.
What a great title!
I know, right? We get to see what's her name? Amazon is guarding this time, and now it's tickets to Rubber Bandland with its with its mascot Usopp.
Yes.
That's
What
kind of amazing.
incredible. I love it.
Oh gosh. But we get to see the other angle that Luffy punched Hody from.
Just awesome.
His fist
really
did not
is
go through, but it's one of those things where you can see their fist on the other side of their body.
Yeah,
Even though they
he
didn't
burned out his
burst.
back.
Yeah. It's like, holy crap. And
Yeah. No, dude, Red Hawk it's so sick.
it took me a while to realize this, and I might be wrong because this is the last chapter, but this is the end of Hody.
I believe so. Yes.
That's incredible that Hody lost here. I had no idea. I honestly thought they'd have to get to the Noah in order to do that. I completely forgot this. The fact that Luffy beat Hody underwater. Oh my God.
Yeah, with a fire attack, no less. It is, I feel like, weirdly unceremoniously, just like how quickly we move on from it.
Yeah, he's beaten. Let's go. We got to get to Noah, which makes sense. And I think it's because he's not fully unconscious. I just realized what he was doing. Hody lands into the Noah and just starts. I didn't pick up on this. He is just downing those pills, handfuls.
Oh, okay, yep.
So I don't know if he's fully done yet, or if he's just going to get taken care of with this final attack that's going to do something twofold here, as Noah's getting closer and closer to Fishman Island. And we move on from that just before we get into what Luffy's actually going to do. Is like, everybody's like, why aren't you getting out of here? Noah's falling. We got to go. It's like, no. I didn't think there was any way to survive. But back when we were kids, over 20 years ago, think of the only human that the people of our nation truly appreciated. And that's when you have a flashback to freaking Whitebeard.
Yes, dude. I love... It's like, oh yeah, I'm homies with Neptune, and we shared a drink to mark our friendship, and like that's just it, you know. And you really see it too, the way in which I love it from the dialogue where it's just like, please, I swear, I'll never kidnap a fishman or mermaid again. Just don't kill me. It's just like, now that Whitebeard has marked this as his territory, it's like, nah.
It's also interesting seeing Whitebeard's symbol there, and it has Marco and the diamond Jozu, and then there's Blackbeard front and center.
Yeah, and I like that even, too, not dissimilar to Luffy, where he's just like, get your filthy hands off my pal's country, where it feels like relationships and friendships really is just kind of like the pirate code, right? Mm-hmm. I like
what
how
is
much
freedom
it's
if
driven
not
by that.
protecting your friends?
Yeah, exactly.
Hearing that, they're just like, wait, you guys want to trust these guys on the same level as Whitebeard? I mean, I know what you mean. I hate humans, but they spoke of actually being friends and risking their lives for us. So what's up with that? And meanwhile, Charlie's, having her vision of Luffy, and Hody's still here. And it's like Luffy's just like, oh, he can have a pretty high bounty just on his toughness alone. It's mostly the pills. But Hody gets his attack, the water heart, as he gathers up the water around him and unleashes Shark Pack. Meanwhile, here comes Luffy with his gum elephant gum and just crashes it straight down into Hody, wrecking the side of the Noah.
This is not the first time we've seen this technique, right? Like he used it on the way down to Fishman Island, right?
Yes.
I think? Okay, yeah. But still, now seeing it against one relatively normal-sized enemy, it's just seeing the scale of it, and you're like, oh, that's what Gear 3 with Haki looks like now.
Oh, yeah. And as Hody's falling unconscious, truly beaten now, he's just like slaughtered the fishmen who've lost their pride, Noah. And that's it. Sort of like, what's he doing is like, oh gosh, we thought he was going to have Dekken do something. It's like, no, Luffy's like, I'm not letting this ship hit him. I'm just going to destroy it. And he starts using elephant Gatling to utterly wreck the Noah.
Yes. Which, man, I wonder, again, thinking about this scene, in the way that he's trying to save Fishman Island now, I wonder how this plays into the prophecy. Like,
I don't know.
I wonder if there was something about Luffy destroying the Noah that maybe got conflated with destroying Fishman Island. But you know, it's also like the irony is that he is saving it. He's destroying Noah to save it now.
Yeah, it could be. I'm quite curious what Charlie's going to take from all this once it's all done, because
I really got
no clue.
Yeah.
But they do declare that Hody has been defeated by Luffy.
Okay, so it's again, even that feels it feels still kind of unceremonious.
Yeah, especially because we're used to all the other like minions being defeated before that. They're still fighting.
That's a good point. Yeah, Luffy won first. That's different.
That is, I can't think of another shonen where the hero beats the main villain first, and there's still cleanup to do with his allies.
I assume that means that they're probably not long for this world right now.
No, but we get the line for the chapter is like, you know, they're like, oh no, Hody's down and there's no way he can destroy the entire ship. Let's get out of here. And their own men are trying to run. And that's when Zio is like, no, death is another form of revenge. Die and curse humans from beyond the grave. This tragedy shall become our flesh and blood. Hatred is never forgotten. We'll pass it on this way. And they're all repeating this. So they're just attacking their own men now.
I think it's interesting too that, like, again, I don't think Zio's whole bit was ultimately that funny, but I do like this dialogue because it is kind of his way of trying to turn it around. It is always this sort of ideology will always make up a new excuse, another excuse to keep fighting and to keep hating.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, it's something that like it feels like I understand why he made this character to just be like, all right, he's just going to make an excuse for everything. No, this was really this. Again, it's not huge or anything, but it's just another kind of, it's another thing I took away from this.
And you know, they're declaring that all the calamities have its roots in humanity, and the kids are like, are humans really that scary? And it's like, there's like no. Throughout history, humans have done countless unspeakable things and that's when Charlie's like, no. Look with your own eyes.
Yes.
Look at yourself, what is happening in the square. Do not take the words of those people to heart. What do you see? And that's when they're looking and they see all the Straw Hats fighting and how they're fighting to protect, and Zio is just taking out his own men.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how Brook is pointedly here. It's like, you've never actually died. You say that your hatred remains after death. Poppycock. Death leaves nothing behind.
That's a great word for Brook to use.
I know. It's like, hell yeah, Brook.
Yeah, man. I feel like Brook in particular during these segments, Brook has really gotten his flowers, and it feels like it's a long time coming.
He really has a point to play.
It feels informed by his life too.
Yeah. And we get his declaration. Our Captain Straw Hat Luffy will one day be the king of the pirates. Believing that as we do, what reason do we have to panic? So I shall fulfill my duty. And things are pretty much coming to an end. It's like, it's not going to be long until this is over, because Hyozu's swords are broken. Frankie's getting ready for his ultimate attack. Jinbei and Sanji have the Watatsumi right where they want them. And yeah, it's all about to come to an end. And here comes Chopper with his berserk form and getting ready to go all out. For like, Usopp's like, you didn't need to do that. That's a little bit overkill. You didn't need to lose control for this. It's like, no, I'm fine.
Yeah, well, although that last expression is extremely cursed.
It is absolutely cursed to see that form with pupils.
And he's just smiling. Like, oh, I'm good. Yeah, he's just like, yeah, it's great. Which kind of a cool reveal.
Yeah, very cool reveal. Not sure if it makes for the best ending for this set of chapters, but you know, everything else was quite good, and it really is just, I feel like the next chapter is just going to be beaten.
Yeah, look, I took particular note for how much, almost pretty much the entirety of Zoro versus Hyozo was just off screen.
Yeah, I mean,
completely skipped.
There's not really it feels unneeded. Honestly,
I
feel like I could be upset by that, but it feels unneeded. And watch the anime to extend it. You know, I'm sure the anime extends it.
I'm not like, oh man, it's not like the princes who I was really rooting for to get a moment, and then they got it, and then they got to take it away from them. This is just like, obviously, I actually, when I think about it, the way that Zoro and Sanji feel like their fights kind of got glossed over the most, I'm kind of okay with that, because of all of the Straw Hats, it feels like you know they're going to be fine, and then you kind of, I feel like you don't really need to see them grow because they were already strong, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yes, Sanji learned how to fly, and that's cool, and like it just it's not as necessary, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It gave us just enough that we know that they're definitely stronger, but we
Yep.
don't need to see the beatdown. It's unnecessary, and yeah, I really think the crisis will be over by the end of the next set.
You're most likely right. Yeah, Hody's done.
Yeah, Hody's
now,
beaten.
All that's left is to really just beat up this ship.
Yeah, see how Luffy handles taking out the ship, because even with Gear 3, there is...
Although, there's a lot of ship left.
Yeah, there's a lot of ship to break up in that small amount of time, so we'll see how that goes. I honestly don't know how Luffy defeats Noah.
Yeah, and I'm really curious about the consequences, too. Because, we learned at the beginning of the set of, like, no, we are supposed to protect this until, it is important for a certain day for some reason. And now, if they no longer have that, like, I guess it fascinates me how much Noah is super important, but we also still don't really know that much in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
So it's maybe hard to feel like, oh, there's going to be consequences for this, other than like it's interesting. Yeah. And I think
maybe
I will
we'll
have
get more from
to
Neptune before Luffy fully breaks it up, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I think I'll have more to say about it soon. Again, I held myself back, and I think there's some. I think I'll say that when we're done recording. I think it's okay, but I don't want to. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, with that, I believe we've said all we've wanted to say about chapters 641 to 645 of One Piece. Thank you so much for listening, and you can find more of my ramblings and stream VODs over at BitNerd Games on YouTube, or BitNerd with an underscore at the end on Twitter, and also on Blue Sky without the underscore. And Brandon, where can everyone find you at?
I'm Brandon Bovia on Twitter and Blue Sky, talking about anime, manga, games, and my job. Although, frankly, I still don't post on Blue Sky all that much. I'm trying to get into the habit of that. I have been using Twitter a lot less lately, which is just, it's been fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like if you want to have some social media, Blue Sky is kind of it. I mean, we don't want to get into that though, but yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Also, a fun little personal quirk of me is that if you post, not you, but if I see One Piece spoilers on my, like if I see leaks, right? Because I read the chapters as soon as they come out officially. If I see scans, I block on site. Just no mercy. Don't have to worry about that on Blue Sky. Probably not, at least.
I don't think so.
Yeah. It's annoying to have to dodge that stuff. So I just
for sure.
I go out of my way to block people who do that.
Don't blame you. But yeah, if you'd like to help us out more, you can support the podcast over at patreon.com/Derek Bittner. That's DERRICKBITNER to listen to the next episode ad-free 3 days early. And make sure to return next time as we discuss chapters 646 to 650 of One Piece. So until then, my friends, bye.
Remember to take life one piece at a time.
Why? What in this world could inspire such cruelty?
Not one damn thing.
That's your answer?